his father was a professor at the Hebrew University. So you take a Hebrew name after you've occupied an official position in Israel. You probably took it before that. But in any case, he rose to be, in the war period, chief of staff and so forth. When the Six-Day War occurred in 1967, he wasn't really chief of staff at that time, but he had an influence. He rushed with a jeep to this Kando's property in Bethlehem, because he knew that Kando had other manuscript, because it had been shown him, pieces of it, that he was trying to sell, that he had hidden. And he dug up this guy's whole garden or whatever, and they finally found it stuffed up a chimney in a cigar box. And that's what's called the Temple Scroll. It's supposed to be 11QT, 11Q Temple. It's supposed to come from Cave 11. That's why I say not sure that it came from there, but that's where. And it's the longest Qumran manuscript. It's about 61 or so columns, and it has a lot about temple worship, and it's considered a sixth law book. That is, it's in the first person. God speaking in the first person to the Jews, like he might do in Deuteronomy or Leviticus. And it does have a lot about the temple. That's not all it has. It has other things that are very important. Now, the whole bottom of it is rotted away because it was up the chimney and it got all wet, that part of it. But the top of it is in good shape. And as it gets further in, it gets better. It gets better because the inner columns are better preserved than the outer columns. So when you get to the 40s, 50s, and 60s columns, they're much better than the 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and 10s. In any case, this has an attack on niece marriage in it, as the Damascus document does. It also has the king law. The king shall marry one wife and only one wife during his lifetime, and she should be a Jewish wife, and he should not divorce during the lifetime of that wife. Now, we've already seen that Herod had 10 wives, and the Herodians divorced at will, and they married their nieces as a family policy. Now, I take that as internal evidence, showing that the people being attacked at Qumran are the Herodians. Now, I may be a fool, but I read the documents. I don't listen to what my professors say, since I didn't have any professors who taught me this subject.
So the people being attacked were Herodians?
By the documents at Qumran are the Herodians and their hangers-on.
Oh.
I'll get into that another time. But the point being that it's not just, it's in the Damascus document too. But the very attack on polygamy and everything, that has to be anti-Herod. There's no indication the Maccabees were doing much of this, if any. That's why we read all that material. That's why I have you read all of it. So that you can make determinations of this kind. You just don't read books that you don't understand. But you have the evidence at your fingertips to make the determinations that need to be made. You understand? That's the whole point of why I bored you to death for, 7 periods. Because anyone can read the materials. Like you can read the materials in one day. It doesn't mean anything. You're not going to learn anything. If you don't have the data which to evaluate it or weigh it or plug it into. You understand? I didn't finish this, even I'm going to with you as we go along. I want to do this. Well, to go back to Cave 1. So the Hebrew University professor was so excited he bought some of the manuscripts from this person. And that's what ended up in what the Israelis call the Shrine of the Book. I don't know if you've ever seen the Shrine of the Book or pictures of it, but it's got a big black slab next to an acorn-looking building, which has a white kind of roof. I always thought that was kind of an inverted acorn. It looked like this. And then it had a big black slab next to it. I only realized later that black slab was supposed to be the Bible, architectural representation of the Bible. And this was supposed to be the lid of a scroll jar. That's where they put their materials from Cave 1, which included Isaiah, the oldest Isaiah, document the community rule, other things of that kind, Habakkuk Pesher. They're in a very good state of preservation because though they weren't in jars any longer, they'd been in jars. And it was clear that K1 had been entered previously because there were broken jars of material over the floor. So I think it would have been entered certainly back in 800, if not some other time. That's why we went into all the caves from Cal State Long Beach when we could, because we didn't feel anyone had done a proper walking survey. We went all the way down the coast, down to what's called En-Gedi. You look on the map, that's about, I would say, maybe 40 kilometers, 50 kilometers down the coast, 25 miles or so. And our people went into every cave, any cave they could get to. And we went into some 400 or 500 caves or indentations. And you could see every place we went, the Bedouin had been every place. We didn't go to places where you needed fancy ropes and things to get into, because they wouldn't have been in there either to the people that were involved in this process. Well, we didn't have permission to do that anyway, but it was sufficient to go into what we could get into. And we mapped that whole area. That's what we were doing when they served us with that lawsuit, and I had to leave for a while. The Cave 1 materials that Athanasius also then bought. After the war was over in 48, 49, he went to Hoboken, New Jersey, where there was a Syriac church of some kind, to become the minister or whatever there, priest. And he took the scrolls with him that he had bought in a metal trunk from Cave 1. Because there were no customs in those days. In any case, the church ran into financial problems, and in the 1954 period or so, he put an advertisement, or 52, 53, it's all on the page of the book, put an advertisement in the paper, Wall Street Journal, scrolls for sale. Yigal Yadin was in New York. I think he was the consul or something. Anyway, some people brought this to his attention, and through a third party, he bought the rest of the scrolls from Cave 1, from this Syriac churchman, who I think ended up in San Diego, and maybe still living down there, the last I heard. In any case, this individual, I think he probably did now, but that was the last I heard, was maybe 20 years ago. But all these materials went into the Museum of the Book that the Israelis opened up. And that's what everyone thought was the Dead Sea Scrolls. Cave 1 material, which were pretty good state of preservation.